And I want to see what Bengi gonna pull out, because like I've heard a lot of rumors of different champions like Lee Sin or Skarner, and I don't know what Bengi plays with all those like Rek'Sai bans, and because like I know him as a stellar Rek'Sai player, and right now it's gonna be really interesting what he prepared. And I think what can also swing the mid lane is if Impact will be winning his lane like he was winning against every team in an ALCS basically. He can like swing mid lane into his favor by roaming.
I think in one of the things I want to point out, by the way, immediately off this pick and ban is the Zac target ban against Meteos to probably have a more standard jungler matchup occur. And then also, the Nidalee ban against SK Telecom is really weird, because Bengi is not a mechanical player, and even though Nidalee is quite broken, I think Bengi makes it look fair.
I think it's just like Nidalee is so broken. I know that Bengi practiced her, so I guess they're just afraid, or like we don't know, maybe they screamed each other and that pulled out. So they just like, it's just like the power pick and they don't want to play against it.
And there is the Syndra, and this is what we were talking about, you know, just before this started, where I thought Syndra would be the most contested mid laner, and I'm actually surprised to see her make it through the pick and ban phase, but maybe Cloud9 has an answer to it.
Yeah, really curious that it was picked up as like the first part of this entire rotation. Alex, like, do you think it's just because it's something they consider must pick all together, or does SKT just feel confident enough they can take any matchup Faker v Jensen?
So it's first of all, it's Jensen most comfort pick. What he says, he can like 1v9 on Syndra. So it's like at the same time you take away the champion from him, and it's really comfortable pick for Faker, and it's one of the contested picks anyway. So if you can hide other parts of your pick and you're confident, and I think they're confident in Faker, right? So they decided this is really important to pick the mid lane right now.
Yep. One of the things that I'm worried about for Cloud9 also is SK Telecom is... Oh no, they're not red side. I'm sorry, I'm getting mixed up by the...
Get kind of juked by the
the overlay.
There, yeah,
okay, never mind. I thought they were trying to intentionally give Duke the counter pick to Impact. But that's not going to be the case. So, never mind, scrap that. Overlay messed me up. Well, looks like Jayce is being hovered, so that might be a top lane Jayce. And Bang, one of the god Ezreal players here at this tournament.
Yeah, Ezreal has a lot of attention right now. I'm not sure why, probably just like because everyone is picking jungle Lee Sin, so you don't really want to pick immobile AD carry against that. So you're just like going with something stable like bot lane, and then it's still like some Ezreal players, they're just good enough to even win the lane, like Bang, because he's really known for his Ezreal. And this way, if you have the AD carry that you know like is safe, you can put more attention mid lane. And with Syndra pick, it's really important like to have a strong 2v2, which is Syndra Elise. And this will allow them to get a lot of picks even eventually in the game, and this game will be a lot about like vision control, because if either Syndra or Elise gets a stun, it's 100% sure kill.
Yep. And we saw that Zed hover, but I didn't think he was going to lock it in, primarily because the Ghost was selected as a summoner spell, but that doesn't always mean too much. But I would have been worried if that did get locked in, because that would have guaranteed the impact would have been on an AP top laner, most likely Rumble, looking at the picks and bans and what could be picked as a viable AP top laner. But it's going to be a Cassiopeia versus Syndra, and I think that Faker is going to probably have his way in that matchup.
Yeah, I think Faker will have slight advantage in this matchup, but Cassio, like as Cassio does, she eventually outscales Syndra in lane in terms of just sustain, and like overall item pass is easier for Syndra, I mean for Cassio than for Syndra.
So knowing that, like in the lane matchup specifically, SKT should have the advantage in that mid lane. Does Meteos then focus all his attention on mid early with Lee? Or what is their game plan on C9, do you think, LS?
Well, the problem in this 2v2 mid matchup, Syndra Elise versus Cassiopeia Lee Sin, is if Bengi ever does get off a successful counter gank, it's just a nightmare for Cloud9. Even proactive ganks, if Lee Sin matches, it's still not the best. Because Elise and Syndra can really diffuse the situation, whereas Cassiopeia and Elise don't really have that ability until level 6.
So, following up, do you think Bengi's going to be able to get off those successful games?
I think that they'll probably play more counter reliant. Also, there's a Pantheon hover right now, but probably more attention up on top lane.
Yeah, I think like 1v1 mid lane, it will be mostly like, I don't think Lee Sin will gank this lane ever, especially after level 6 of Syndra, because like it depends of course on the build of Meteos. I know some people still go like some weird Tiamat into Cinder Hulk, right? But if he goes the usual warrior build, it's just like you get one shot. So you don't really want to gank this lane after level 6. Any counter gank, you just get one shot. And then it all depends on Jensen if he can play it out safe or not. But I really like that they didn't pick Nami or anything on SKT, and they actually picked Alistar because they needed tank, and this is like the best tank support. So basically both teams have kind of similar comps, with like heavy ganking jungler, which is meta of this tournament right now. Like the top lane matchup, I don't know much about like Jayce against Rumble shenanigans, because like I guess, I mean, if it's like solo queue, right, Jayce is OP, but in competitive it could be different.
Yeah, I think looking at these two team comps right now, Cloud9 is, the longer the game draws on, the more problematic it becomes, because SK Telecom has a lot of gears. They have Engage, they have Disengage, they have Poke, they have Siege. They almost have it all, their comp, whereas Cloud9 is heavily reliant on that Lee Sin or that Rumble to really make a fight happen.
Well, that's why they have Sivir on top of that. So like they have the Sivir engage, and then it will, like, I really like the combination of Rumble and Cassio. Like I discussed with Zareen today. So it's basically like, if you can actually land a good miasma and then like Rumble on top of that, I mean, they can just like one-shot someone with that. The only problem is like double AP, so it's much easier to get a, like, itemize against it.
Yeah, it's going to be much easier to itemize. I think Syndra could even go Abyssal Scepter in this matchup, given how close quarter combat she's going to be to some of these champions. Could end up dealing more damage, given that there's a lot of AD coming out of SK Telecom's team comp, so maybe not a lot of magic resistance coming out of Cloud9.
Yeah, the only like easiest part for the mid lane too, for Jensen, is that jungle and mid matchup is like magic damage too, so it's like easy for him to, because he can like itemize Abyssal, and eventually he'll have Rylai's or something.
Yep, he can easily just go tier Negatron and try to like farm it out and just live and scale up.
All right, so we've hit the rift, guys. Remember, during the course of this game, if you have any questions for Alex, Ellis, or myself, you can tweet them at LOL Esports using the hashtag AskTheCasters. We'll read some of those out in-game as we watch Jensen and FAKER make things go bloody.
So the masteries are usual. So I guess FAKER, he really favors the duration of buffs, so he goes for that, while Jensen as usual goes for cookies. Because like in NA, everyone like prefers some kind of lane domination. So everything that gives you some lane advantage, they go for that.
Yep.
And this is a nice thing.
That's actually really, really big. That means that Duke gets level 2 off the first wave. That is super big up there in top lane. I know that you were saying that you don't know too much about Jayce versus Rumble, but that can actually be a pretty problematic matchup. So huge chance to snowball up in top lane. Only for SKT. I don't think that even if Rumble gets enough assistance early on that he can really translate that into something against Jayce.
So rewinding a little bit back to the matchup when you guys talked about masteries and how Jensen's going for the more biscuit-oriented route. Alex, you said that's something that NA tends to prefer. Why do you think that is?
I think it's just like the comfort. So basically, it's some kind of Abdo style where you like take everything for lane, basically. Because usually when you go out of lane, it's like, it doesn't matter, like you need to not lose your lane, and you basically take everything for lane. And I think for FAKER, it's more of, he always like very confident in himself and his abilities. So like he was the first one to take CD per level while everyone was taking Emirates, just because he's sure that he can dodge those skill shots and things.
I want to point out that already, I mean, we're only on the first wave, and Jensen has made a lot of mistakes just in his micromanagement, and that's not something you want to do in this matchup at all. Although he does get the level 2 jump on FAKER.
Yeah, so basically he was trying to get level 2 first, that's why he played aggro. But we can see that FAKER, even though he was level 1 against level 2, he still got the superior traits, and he has 1 pot advantage already. And the way Jensen played the lane, because he's getting out-traded, he basically pushed the lane and gets himself susceptible to ganks. Yep. So Meteos will have to like hover around the mid lane, and he can screw his route a bit.
Yep.
So what's the soonest you expect Bengi to actually go into this mid lane, given that?
I predict that Bengi actually just goes for counter ganks in mid, even though I think it's a little ballsy by Jensen not to take cleanse in this matchup. The Syndra stun and the Elise cocoon, you can be pretty sure that, you know, SK Telecom has practiced this matchup a lot.
Yeah.
And I think this is a pretty rough spot, by the way, for Cloud9. I think Jensen played this lane horribly. He's recalling right now with 500 gold.
Yeah, so basically he's just doing the 2 Doran ring recall, and I mean, FAKER probably can even stay out the lane with 1 Doran ring and not even recall, and it gives just like Bengi free time in jungle, so he can do whatever he wants.
Yep. One thing I think that is also important to note is we've noticed from the Korean mids so far this tournament, they've tended to play a very passive defensive style against all the Western mids. We saw it from Crown yesterday, and we're seeing it from FAKER again today. Even though he consistently out-traded Jensen, we saw Crown do that against Senkooks yesterday as well. So I'm wondering if that's going to be the mindset. And also a Sapphire Crystal out of FAKER with his recall, and Boots, which I think is a little bit interesting.
So Sapphire Crystal is just for the Lost chapter. He doesn't really want to waste any money for like Doran Ring or something. He wants to, and that's basically like gives you the same amount of like trades and mana before you recall the next time. And as for Boots, it's probably more of against Cassiopeia matchup because like he wants to dodge the skill shots easier.
Yeah, he's already been able to outmaneuver the Cassiopeia. I mean, he's given him some pause here. What does C9 really need to do to kind of correct course? Because it looks like Jensen's having a hard time despite the CS lead. Here we go.
This is actually really good by Meteos, but
FAKER sidesteps it.
So FAKER, I'm not sure if like Bengi gave him information because I think Meteos invaded first, so FAKER saw him. So it was like he still. This is what is the FAKER advantage, because he can still play aggressive even though like he knows the jungler is around him, and just he knows that he will outplay him eventually when he comes.
Level lead over Jensen, which is really scary. I was just looking at the experience, and that's pretty problematic. As you can see, they're both level 5, but FAKER still had minions. So this is pretty bad. So Meteos leached some XP, and also Jensen, when he mismanaged the lane levels 1 through 3, he fell behind a little bit at an XP there. And this matters so much for Syndra's level 6 spike.
Yeah, right now, like, just Bengi needs to hover around. He doesn't even need to gank. He just needs to be around when FAKER hits level 6. And it either forces the Jensen recall, so he falls even more far behind, or, I don't know, Jensen just dies.
Yep, Jensen can easily die here. They know that Bengi's here. Okay, this is why I said you need cleanse.
Hey, all right, that's first blood. Bengi just comes right out of the bushes, and even the exhaust burn. I mean, there's no way you can react to that in time. You need to like be a lot safer.
Cleanse. You need it. I don't understand what his thought process was taking exhaust. Also, you know, FAKER also has shown a lot of synergy every time Bengi's been on Elise historically in Korea.
All right, so in light of that, Alex, what does Jensen really need to be doing from here? Like, yes, he's kind of handicapped by not having the cleanse, and he's been falling behind in farm. What does he need to do to try and get this lane back on track? Well,
at least he didn't waste flash, so he just like he needs to farm it out and basically play super passive, and I think he will just start falling behind, and FAKER will have free roams. Because like you need tier on Cassio, you can't really rush Negatron compared to other mid laners. So I mean, right now he just needs to manage his lane better. But most of the time when you die, you can see that lane pushes away from you. So it's really a rough spot. Because right now, like FAKER, they can just like try to kill him again.
Yeah, he's giving a healthy, respectful distance here. So you can see him like changing up a little bit, but I don't know, LS, do you see him really, a player like Jensen really like changing his playstyle around a matchup like this?
It doesn't seem like he's playing the lane very well. Also, he has to be really careful right now because FAKER's lethal on Jensen is about 700 Cassiopeia HP, and that's just for a 4-orb ultimate. So without that exhaust being up, Jensen actually can't even touch 700 HP, or there's just a chance that FAKER, who has all of his summoners, just goes on him and deletes him.
Yeah. As we can see, like, this is why Syndra is contested and everything. So right now, because they have like Ezreal and Sivir bot lane, they can just like leave bot lane alone, and then they have Rumble top lane, and usually C9 overall tends to leave Impact like by himself. So SKT don't need to do anything except just like forcing the vision and plays around the mid lane.
Oh, this could get bad if they try to give it to Jensen.
Well, he does get it, and Meteos is going to get spotted by Bengi. There's the cocoon coming in, but yep. So he did get away with this one. How does that change things for Jensen here?
I don't think it changes much.
Yeah, it doesn't change much. Okay, well, boy. He might just...
He was going to donate
giving respect to Meteos. I honestly think if they had even just a ward on him, or if they had a little bit more intel, he just flashes and okay, well, so this is what I was talking about. There she goes.
Okay, so the blue buff goes over to Faker.
Thanks for the blue.
Well, it's just like Faker didn't want to flash there because like if Meteos is actually there and then Jensen just flashes his Q, then just ultimate wasn't enough damage because he needed both Q and ult to finish him off. And here, like, he knew that he can land the Q, and Jensen didn't flash the Q, so he got the damage, and then he died.
Now Faker roaming down. They did have a ward on it. He might just pick up these two jungle minions. I think it's too risky for him to actually stay, unless Bengi comes around. Okay, well.
Yeah, you can do that with Syndra.
You can do that.
Blue buff is not happy in the river, but Bengi does put it out of its misery. So Meteos having a hard time now in his own jungle. Jensen is really far behind. I mean, you talked about him having to play passive, but is that even going to be enough for him at this point?
Well, Syndra has the standard Korean build right now going on, actually. Stork 10 boots, Lost Chapter, and then just an Amplifying Tome. She can 100 to 0 you from basically 1,000 HP, but there is the no Magic Mantle, so
it's basically the same 700 HP gate where he needs to. And Syndra gonna hit level 9, so she can even carry more balls on the ground. Which is just like very problematic for Jensen, and he wasted his flash while Faker didn't waste his flash, and Bengi will have his flash up. So basically, right now C9 just needs to make play around other lanes, which they try to do, and if that fails, then Jensen just falls even more behind.
The issue here for Cloud9 is, you know, they should be winning bot harder than they are right now. It's an Ezreal tier lane. Surprised actually that Bang didn't just go Cull given how even he's going. You'd think that he would just want to apply more salt to the wound. But the clock is ticking for Cloud9. This Lee Sin pick is doing nothing. He has a lot more farm, but historically NA junglers have tended to favor more farm over getting your laners ahead, which is one of the stylistic differences between Korea and the West.
Yeah, that's why I like more from an A, more like Olaf peak or something. Something like that that has pressure, the same amount of pressure, but at the same time, like, you just have the faster wave clear, like jungle clear. So you can like clear all the jungle and at the same time apply the pressure. While as Lee Sin early, I mean, it goes pretty slow. And I'm still a fan of the Tiamat build on Lee Sin.
Yep.
So do you guys think a lot of this was set up in the pick ban? Because remember, the Syndra was first picked off. You talked about Bengi being historically pretty solid on this Elise and Faker doing well with it. SKT seem to kind of make a beeline for those picks, and do you think that's a big part of why they're doing so successful in this early game?
Yes and no. Because yes, like, they picked Syndra, and it was really important pick, and Faker has a lot of pressure, and he was known for his Syndra a lot before, like, at the beginning. But at the same time...
He's in lethal. Go ahead.
At the same time, it's just like Jensen misplayed the lane. Like, this is a skill matchup, Jensen misplayed it, and he got punished.
And so they pick up a water dragon, but honestly, it doesn't mean much. And now we might actually see a fight happen. Nope, never mind. Meteos manages to get out.
Right now, like, no one... Like, SKT, they're just, like, playing around the mid lane fully. And just Faker is doing Faker things. If they get the mid tower, it will be really problematic for C9, because they will probably lose side towers after that really fast.
Yep. And, you know, one of the other problems is we can already see Faker is up 36 CS. He's almost effectively farming 33% more than Jensen. I don't even know what Meteos is trying to do here. Meteos, this entire game, has had very bizarre and wonky mid-roam time, or mid-show-up timings, and I just don't know what the comms are or what the calls are, because he needs to be playing around bot more.
He's just... I don't know, it reminds me of solo queue in some way, where the mid lane is saying, he's under my turret 24/7, why you don't gang? But in reality, like, Meteos cannot do anything here.
Yep.
Yeah. And you gotta wonder what's going through the mind of Jensen at this point, too. I mean, Cassiopeia has been a pick he hasn't really lost on since, like, week 7 in the NALCS. And, you know, I mean, Alex, like, if you were in this situation, like, what do you have to think when you're just getting dunked this hard?
Yeah, usually sages for jungler just never come to mid lane. Just like leave me alone and go somewhere else, try to do something, or just farm. Because like in reality, with Syndra can just even kill the jungler, or like if Elise is there, they just like have too much pressure and everything. If you can like accumulate advantage somewhere, you'd rather do that.
Yep.
Because like if you don't do anything, then he will just lose the tower, and then they will eventually probably lose the game of that, because Syndra Elise will be pretty annoying.
Yeah. Let's check in with Twitter. At Henry Wright 97, he's asking, why is this meta leaning towards burst in the mid lane? How does Vladimir fit into this meta, for example, as not a burst champion? LS?
Well, a lot of the current, kings of the jungle are very burst-oriented. You have Elise, you have Graves as, I think, like the top two, at least coming out of the Korean region. Those are the top two. And so the mid lane and the jungle 2v2 duo is super, super crucial right now, especially because of Drake control, and just because of how many good mid laners there are right now that are available, that if they scale up or they get an advantage like what we're seeing here, it just suffocates the opponent's ability to come back.
I don't think it's actually leaning like towards the burst champs. It's just like Syndra is the champion that has burst, at the same time a good laning phase, and at the same time really good team fights. And like, when you have something like Elise, it's just like Syndra and Elise together, they have really good synergy.
Yep.
And as we can see, like mid lane has a 1k gold advantage already.
Yeah, that's starting to get pretty far out of hand. And you guys talked about trending towards a lot of heavy ganking junglers as well. How much do you think that really plays into, the tendency to use these champions that maybe don't have all the escape tools they need, but they can snowball super hard in lanes?
I mean, it's still like, it's still not the LeBlanc meta, right? Because LeBlanc, she just like suffers a lot, and that's why Syndra is just like the exchange of that, where you have the champion that has like kind of the same role as LeBlanc, like deleting people, having pressure and everything, but at the same time, this champion is actually good in team fights.
Oh,
and
they know this is coming.
Yeah, they just like were there faster, so SKT didn't make it on time, but they had a ward there, so they knew that C9 took it, and they got away. But yeah, and it just like, that's why it's like Syndra, Cassio, Vladimir, Malzahar, basically the champs that are really good in team fights, really good at lane, and Vladimir, just like, for example, he nullifies the lane, so you cannot gank him, and he just like, you go somewhere else, and he then will be really good in team fights, while Syndra, from the other hand, is just like, has pressure in lane. So like, Vladimir against Syndra, just like, Vladimir needs to survive it, you don't gank that lane, and then eventually he just like gets too much MRS.
Alright.
Yeah, and this is what I meant. Like, if Elise shows up, as I was saying earlier, Cloud9 has no hope. Anytime that Elise matches or counter ganks Cloud9, it just ends. But if Faker and Bengi go for the proactive gank onto Cloud9, they can end it. They can nullify any sort of counterplay material that could be offered from Cassiopeia Elise.
Well,
so it's problematic.
They just one-shot one, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is like the problem, because like Jensen didn't take a cleanse, which counters both Syndra and Elise and nullifies their gank. So we can see that
now he's in lethal.
Yep.
Meanwhile, in top lane.
Yeah, you've got other stuff happening on the map, because you've had Meteos spending so much attention in this mid that Bengi realizes he's kind of free to go elsewhere.
This is why I don't know. I'm not a fan of Rumble pick, even though I think he's like really good. They have good synergy and stuff. But I feel like if they actually pick something for impact, or I don't know, it's just C9 tendency that they play around Jensen all the time.
Yep.
I think they never were in situation except against TSM, where the mid lane suffers, and we can see that all their like game plan, it just ruins apart.
Yep. Well, like you just mentioned, against TSM, Jensen and Bjergsen are much closer than Jensen and Faker. And so when your team's strategy is to funnel the gold into mid lane, it's not really going to do too much when Faker can just nullify that and actually put your mid laner behind. So what I would have liked to have seen, as I was talking about in the pick and ban, is actually just put all the attention up there on top and... Oh.
Ay, 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 and Wolf finishes the job.
Yep.
Wow.
Turns out cows eat snakes. Yep.
Yeah, it's a weird world on Summoner's Rift.
Cow named Wolf. There you go.
Yeah. This is looking really, really brutal for C9 right now. You talked about them funneling so much gold into the mid lane. And earlier on, we talked about how like they were going to be super reliant on impact to start these fights on this Rumble. Are they even going to get a chance to do that the way this game is going?
Probably not. I mean, right now, there is a fight happening in the bot lane.
In bottom lane, and
yeah,
I don't even know why they're calling impact into this. They can't, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, what you guys are seeing is the mini camera, but there is no hope that Cloud9 could ever win that, and they actually went through with the teleport.
Yeah, they lost out 2-0 there. I mean, it's 6-0 in favor of SKT. And so much of it was already on Faker before this even began, and now everyone else is starting to snowball.
Yeah. It just everything falls apart. It just like mid lane is winning so hard that they have so much pressure. Lee has to hover around it. Then Bengi just like one moment he just understands that Faker can even 1v2 this lane, and yeah, this reminds me of Worlds, the previous Worlds.
I get deja vu.
Yeah,
Doa lives on.
where
Bloodthirsty. Yeah.
Things Faker does, and Wolf.
where just like Faker plays mid lane, he wins mid lane super hard, and then Wolf and Marin just come mid lane, and they keep killing mid lane over and over again until he can't move anymore.
Yep.
Except apparently it's Wolf this time around. Looking pretty fly on his own skin, but yeah, this is just so rough right now. Like C9, they seem really lost. Like Elise, do you know what you know they even must be thinking at this point?
I mean, they can't be thinking very much. Cassiopeia is literally 6 feet under right now. She's not even going to be relevant until 35, 40 minutes, if they can even make it there. And because Cassiopeia is nullified and Rumble, it makes Sivir's ultimate almost completely useless, because they can't use that for any sort of a pick or an engage, because they just don't have any damage. So in the pick and ban, I was talking about how, you know, SK Telecom eventually just outscales, and they have so many gears that they can just turn on according to the situation. And they have a vastly superior scaling team comp. So the gold deficit, you know, you're seeing it on the screen, it's pretty big in favor of SKT. It's even bigger than that when you factor in the champion scaling and the items.
And it's growing. If you look it up what's going on in the top, Bengi's coming up there. Jensen's going to try to make something happen here, and maybe they can get a kill back. Sure, Meteos has got it, but, I mean, does that really change anything right now?
I mean, Meteos got a really good kick there. He kicked one into another, which gave the knock-up, so they could get a kill. But I don't think it's going to change much right now. I mean, this is what C9 kind of needs. They need to trade kills, and they need to like get the towers. So basically, C9 are doing like proper things when they're behind, but at the same time, they're really far behind. And the problem is, what SKT pick is really good at is controlling the vision and baiting the Baron, because they have Elise Syndra, which you cannot face check. So eventually, when SKT will generate enough gold that they can like tank Baron without like suffering too much, they will just go for Baron, and you cannot even go out of there.
Yeah. I don't think this is really going to trend anyway, but that right now, with 20 minutes into this game, you know, SKT, they've built up this kind of like classic situation for themselves where they just control the early game so thoroughly, especially with Faker just completely destroying Jensen. There's not much they can do. And, you know, at this point, you've got Bengi running pretty tanky on Elise, and, you know, it seems like it's pretty easy for him to do that.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned in the pick ban phase that Alistar was seemingly the only tank on SK Telecom, but at this point, Bang is so big, Faker is so big, all that you really need to do on Bengi now is just not die. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes Locket of the Iron Solari after.
Yeah, because all their damage is on Faker. Look at that, what he just did to Impact.
I'm not sure if it's like tank, or he actually takes it just for the movement speed, because it's like kind of both, so we don't know exactly the idea, because in reality, they probably want to engage on C9, and like their only engage is Alistar, so getting one more engage is pretty good from Elise. Because basically, what people do on Elise, right? For example, in Chinese region, they just go Mobi Boots, and she just like runs you down, and like you cannot do anything. She just like runs you down, cocoons, and you either flash or die. So basically, he want to do the same with just the Deadman's play instead. And yeah,
looks like it's working.
Yeah,
unfortunate things are happening everywhere. So. Right now, I don't know. As for me, it's like for C9, I'm not sure about this game, but overall, just like what, especially Jensen, what needs to do, like even though he lost the lane mostly like 1v1 and everything, just not tilt for the rest of the tournament or something. Because like the things when you lose so hard 1v1 can tilt you out of the whole tournament. Because like this is like you just understand that you got outclassed super hard.
Yeah, and it just keeps on happening. Yeah, like I mean, how do you?
Syndra, nice champ.
Yep. How do you kind of prevent that, though, in your mind? Do you just, like, mentally disconnect from the game at that point and just be like, okay, whatever, FF, mentally go next?
I mean, you try to play this game out and stuff, but, like, it depends on the person himself. Some people can, like, I don't know, just forget about it and don't care much, right? They just, like, I got outplayed or, like, shit happens. Or some people need, like, the cheer of the teammates, so they need, like, teammates that will actually come and say, like, I mean, things happen. It's Faker, after all. But like, it just depends on how like mentally stable Jensen is. You cannot predict it. It just like changes from player to player. But like at this point, it's just like 10k ahead. I don't think SKT gonna throw this.
No, I can't see them throwing this game. I would be very surprised if Cloud9's able to make a few picks here. Although it does look
have
like
one.
they are about to take down Jayce, but they're losing their bottom inhibitor tier 3. This almost looks like, you know, I think we need another Reddit SKT versus Dynamic Q.
Yeah, FAKER's going in 1v2 right now. He's feeling pretty good about this. He's going to flash in. Oh, he couldn't quite pick up Impact. Oh, that's so unlucky.
Yeah, right. The Impact is better than FAKER, confirmed.
Yep, there we go.
That's why they won.
Yeah,
perfect. Oh, well, I mean, you know, shut down gold. I guess that's worth something. Or rather, he's only got 2 kills, so maybe not quite. But C9 are, you know, they're hanging on by a thread here, and it's hard to see them coming back. I wanna focus a little bit on Twitter now that we've got like a brief break in the action, and we saw FAKER use the summoner from Man Marpin on Twitter. What is the thought process behind Syndra running Ghost?
Do you want to take this?
I mean, it's pretty simple, especially against Cassio. So basically, right now, what Syndra does is she can like ghost up, ult the person, then E and stun him. So basically, it's pretty much the same as like TF or Rise or anything. You have 100% sure engage, and if you get ahead, then you just like you just ghost and run the person down, and then eventually, Ghost is just like a really strong summoner offensively and defensively because you can evade ganks easier and you can get ganks easier. Basically, if you're like Syndra and Elise, you're pretty much sure that your enemy will run cleans, in rare occasions exhausts, and then basically you can like run away from him. And then also Ghost, like, it counters Cassio, it counters Sivir, it counters Rumble, so it's like really good summoner.
Ghost is really, really strong ever since it received its buff a few patches ago. And just going off what you said also, Ghost, when active and just holding the stun on Syndra, almost makes it so that you don't even need to flash, so you're able to contain a summoner spell. And the other thing about it is Syndra already overkills a lot. She has a very, very large lethal range, maybe even higher than Annie, I think, which is pretty scary given Syndra's range.
Yeah, just like, when you take Ignite and you will be against, for example, Cleanse, he can even cleanse the Ignite if you like mistime it. So it's much better to, like, for example, he just cleanse flashes you, and then you either cannot land Ignite anymore, or he cleanses your Ignite if you landed it preemptively.
Right.
And as for Ghost, it's the same logic as Ghost TF or Ghost Rise. It's basically whenever you Ghost, if enemy has Ghost, he has to Ghost, and if he doesn't have Ghost, then he has to Flash. And then your cooldown is just slower than the Flash.
Yep. Also want to point out really quickly that Jayce is going to be doing pretty much true damage to 3 targets on Cloud9's team with that build. So he's going to hit like a truck. I don't actually know exactly what runes and masteries he's running, but a lot of Korean Jayces right now run all armor pens. So he's just annihilating you.
Yeah.
And also,
wasn't bad enough, right?
Yeah, and Ezreal also going Trinity Force. Generally, Trinity Force is inferior to Iceborne Gauntlet almost in every scenario except the one that we're seeing right now, which is a super abnormally quick acceleration.
Yeah, like in their comp probably with like Syndra and J-Stop, Iceborne Gauntlet would be better for like utility because, I mean, you overcap the damage of the team already, so utility. But like, they're so much ahead that they probably just, I mean, it doesn't matter that much what they build, and he probably just goes damage. Or maybe it's just bank preferable, you never know. Like, some people just prefer Trinity even though it could be worse. And yeah, Jayce has 38 armor penetration right now.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And 30% like from the last Whisper on the armor.
What is Sivir's armor?
And Sivir's armor is 63.
Okay.
So, close enough.
It's going to be hard.
He'll end up probably getting the Black Cleaver, even though he has all of that armor pen, just to get that CDR on Jayce, because he's already at 20%, I think, right now. So he definitely wants to look to cap out.
So there's just so much range and so much power, AD and AP on SKT, and you can see C9 kind of respecting this because there really isn't any other option. I mean, what can they do other than pop the Sivir ult and hope for the best to try and push them back?
I mean, that's what C9 comp does, so it's just like you don't fall 12k behind. Because like in reality, what SKT have, they have like some kind of poke peak comp, right? But they, in equal situation, if C9 could have like have the equal game at 20 minutes, then pretty much the idea is Sivir pops ult and they go for the team fight with like Miasma, Rumble ult, but they just too far behind.
Yep. Now they're going for the Baron, and this is all on Meteos if he can get the steal. FAKER, okay, Wolf's gonna just say, you know what, how about you stay away?
Didn't give him the opportunity.
Wolf might die. No, never mind, they're not
They're respecting that even.
Yeah, they don't have any vision.
And he still has an Alistar.
Their map is pretty dark.
Yeah, it's hard when you get snowballed this hard right now.
It just like SKT champions are so good when they're ahead that I don't see the like they have the dive from Alistar, they have the poke from Jayce, and they have like pick from Syndra Elise. So basically, you cannot even sit under the tower because like you will either get stunned by Syndra or Cocoon. And if you don't get stunned or Cocoon, then it will happen in like 10 seconds again.
Yep.
Is there? I mean, it's hard to say when there's such a ridiculous snowball, when there's such an outplaying in mid. Is there something that C9 can take from this game, like a lot of micro stuff, decision making that they can grab and try to improve? You know, when they watch it back later on.
Don't lose the lane at level 1.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Good
to
lesson.
say. Like I mean, he just went for trades level 1 and he lost all the trades.
Yeah. It almost looks like Meteos. I mean, we can put a lot of the blame on Jensen, but honestly, Meteos constantly going mid over and over looks so random. It didn't look like there was thought behind it. And honestly, I mean, the draft, this isn't something that you draft, in my opinion, against a team that has multiple better players than you.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought that like the C9.
Oh, yep. This may be the death knell, but C9 did at least get a couple of kills for themselves and answer for it. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's turned into a really desperation fight for C9 right now. And Impact just gets blown to smithereens.
Yeah.
It's just like this is what would have happened if C9 would have equal gold, right? They would have win this team fight, and then this is how they win the team fight. Sivir ults, they run down people, they get kills, but they cannot do that. And the problem is like they believed in Jensen versus FAKER. I'm not sure what it depends on, right? If they like had good scrim results or, but like sometimes you should understand that like SKT always play around FAKER.
Yep.
It's always mid lane. It's always mid lane pressure. Just pick the mid lane nullifier and play around Impact for once. Because you have like superior top laner.
Yep.
And,
Well, I would disagree about the superior top laner. I think Duke is super undercredited in Korea.
At least it's closer like than Jensen versus FAKER probably.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose
I would agree with
hindsight's
that. I would
20/20.
agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, so C9 didn't get the game ended on them, but I mean, it's all but, right? They're sitting on just one tower. SKT, they never seem to take unnecessary risks in this game, like, at all.
Yeah, SK Telecom just playing super safe, and we're just taking a look at this replay, how this all happened.
The one time they didn't necessarily play safe, and Bang did everything he could.
Yep. Bang ends up just getting caught out right here, and Wolf comes in with the flash pulverize. It ends up doing a great deal of damage to Sneaky. And the problem here is FAKER's just way too big. Way too big. And also, it's important to note that Bengi did elect to go into that super full tank because they already have so much damage. Ezreal, Jayce, Ezreal getting damage amplification from, well, not yet, but he will get damage amplification from Jayce once he completes the Black Cleaver. And all he needs to do is just absorb damage.
Yeah, maybe Bang would have survived if he went Iceborne Gauntlet.
Yeah.
I mean, he Q-assessed, he healed, he flashed. Yeah, you need like all the tools you can to get out of danger. But
Yeah.
this is C9 just like full-on desperation fighting, and they do still have the Sivir utility. They have some ways to get involved, and maybe they can pick a few kills. But I mean, everything's just melting oh so fast. Like,
They just have such an item advantage. It's all but, I don't know, see, some of the things that SKT are doing, most notably Bang's death just a moment ago in the mid lane. Why was he in that position? Why is Duke in this position?
because they're getting on the inhibitor, I guess.
I mean,
Sure.
for Duke, it's kind of expected. For Bang, it's expected too. His team was already mid lane, and he was coming there. But C9, they were sitting in the bush out of desperation, so they just caught him on the way, and SKT didn't expect that. So I guess we can give C9 credit on that,
Yeah.
because they finally stabilized some vision in their jungle. But other than that, I mean, it was still one pick, and then FAKER killed everyone, so...
And
5-3.
SKT can probably actually win this. Meteos, though, he's hunting for a kick.
Yeah, but I mean, this is their only chance for the fight.
There we go. Checks FAKER. They're going to try to push him off as he gets exhausted, but he's still out of harm's way. And it doesn't look like C9's got a whole lot left in the tank. This should be another inhib.
Well, the angle was not there, so...
And credit to them for trying. Like, Meteos
Yeah, I mean,
is
this
still
is
roaming
the only time they can do something, because it's like 4v5.
Yep. Even 4v5, I mean, okay, so they're currently at a 16k gold deficit, and Jayce only contains 13k gold. So even without Jayce, SK Telecom is still ahead on gold.
6,000 of that gold is just in mid lane. I mean, that's just how far this has gone, swingy, and yeah, FAKER is massive.
Yep. You can just see Faker trying to juke some stuff.
How to dodge skill shots 101. Impact keeps going for him. Oh!
Oh,
Right, he's got some damage
that's
on.
a cute gate. Yeah, that was a really cute gate by Duke right there. You know, they had to try to go for something. They needed to do something. They end up losing the turret, though. But, you know, what can you do, honestly? Also, Meteos having Guardian Angel, that's primarily because he acknowledges that when he goes in, he's most likely going to die. So he just wants to have a little bit of a wake-up off the Guardian Angel Resurrection.
Yeah, well, it's like the usual build, the warrior into the tank, so it's just like, I mean, he has Deadman's Plate for the movement speed, so he can try to get behind them, and then he like kicks someone, gets into G8, then pops up, but I mean, Nexus is slightly open already.
Yeah.
Oh, flash, just send out the True Shot Barrage. Jensen's not even going to make it back to Fountain. There he is. This is the desperate fight, though. If they can just push them off, they're not going for Nexus, but Meteos is going to fall not before the shutdown. Abengi comes in. C9 have actually managed to push this back for a second. I don't think it's going to go any longer than that, though.
I mean,
oh,
even
Jensen.
through the exhaust.
that's through exhaust.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's going to be game. 34 minutes.
All right.
I mean, SKT forced that 5-4v5, Faker wasn't there even.
Yep. Managed to get it in the end of the day. So SKT completing a really massive snowball all the way down the hill.
Dominating.
Didn't take too many unnecessary risks, sacrificed a few players, and that was it, all said and done. I mean, textbook example.
I mean, I think that was very cookie cutter. And I think that stylistically so far, the Korean mids have all shown particular tendency to play defensive and just outpoke. We saw it also yesterday, Crown versus Sencooks, where he kept trading really hard against Sencooks, and they weren't able to reciprocate damage. And you can't give Faker Syndra.
Yeah, that's how Korean mid laners play, because like a lot of people think that you get level 2 and then like you push out and then you have pressure. When you play against Korean mid laners, they just abuse it. Basically, when you counter him, he just like out trades you, and because you go aggro, it's easier for him to trade against you. We saw that Faker, he was level 1 against first level 2, and he still out traded him.
Yep.
So why do you think that's such a stylistic like mismatch or difference that the Korean mids just overall will tend to, you know, punish what they know most of these Western mids will go like super aggressive?
Well, I have a personal belief that punishing a mistake is superior to trying to force it. Because you don't need to have all the answers because your opponent can't ask you all the questions. So as long as you play up until your opponent's mistakes and you just go even, you know, then emotions come into play, tilt comes into play, and all this other stuff. And you just saw Jensen was trying to do too much early on, and you got punished.
Well, it's also all about the lane management too, because like, I mean, you can try to push out, but eventually, if you don't like push hard enough, which as Cassiopeia versus Syndra, it's actually pretty hard, you get into position where he had to recall, because otherwise it's just like it's either jungler comes or even like Syndra pressures you 1v1 too hard.
Yeah, and even when the jungler came, it was really pretty much too little too late, right? So there wasn't much they were able to do on that front, and you can pretty much see the end result. Yeah, so for all of you aspiring mid laners out there, take Cleanse if you're playing off against Faker. Or Syndra specifically.
Yeah.
We'll have to find out. Okay, that's our first matchup of the day complete now. We're going to be shifting gears here on the Player Experience stream. So coming up next, join me, Zyrene, and Rusty for a jungle-focused cast of Flash Wolves versus Aimee. But for now, we're going to go ahead and send you guys back to the main stage until we hit the break.
Playing alongside him, and we'll get more information on that duo once they face off against Aimee later on, and we can actually gauge the level of Aimee, and this group could actually turn out to be very exciting, not in